Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and right there, right there,
right here,
is Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
Hi, Nikki Kinzer.
How are you?
I'm so good. Can I tell you why?
Tell me.
I spent the weekend at the XOXO Festival. Are you familiar with this?
I have no idea.
XOXO Festival
Kiss
is
and hugs.
Kiss and hug. This was the 6th annual XOXO Festival in Portland, Oregon. It's put on by Andy Bio and Andy McMillan, who are two gracious gentlemen named Andy, and they're fantastic. And they put on a conference that is, seriously, like no other conference that I have ever attended. This is the second time I attended this particular conference, and it was at the Memorial Coliseum. Usually it's at this old sort of burnout old factory, and it's kind of a very cool environment. But this year it was at the big giant Coliseum, and there's 2,300 people there, and it was just really beautiful. Just a beautiful experience about creativity and work and the challenges of working on the internet and inclusivity and awareness. And it was the spirit of XOXO embodies everything that I think we try to do on this show about changing the way we think about ADHD as something that we live with as a partner in our lives. Mm-hmm. And it was just a really magical kind of a thing. They even gave me these pins. I'm new to these kinds of pins, and they're pronoun pins. You know about these pronoun pins?
No.
You say, when you register, you say, I use the pronouns he, him. But they also had she, her, and they them, and
cool.
Ask Me was one of them. And it was very cool. They were really trying to normalize this kind of inclusive behavior that is not done anywhere else.
Right.
And so it was just massive, massive congratulations to the Andys and their incredible conference, xoxofest.com. Check it out. It's totally worth it.
I had an experience similar.
Tell me.
I went to the Jason Mraz concert on Friday night. And he is all about love and inclusiveness and mindfulness.
So Jason Mraz was Monday, or was Friday night?
Friday night.
And where was this?
On my birthday.
This in Eugene?
No, it was at the McMinnville, or not McMinnville, Troutdale Edgefield Amphitheater.
Oh, at the McMinimans.
At McMinimums.
That is a fantastic facility.
Yes. It was awesome.
Oh, he's delightful.
Yes. And I had a new drink that I'd never had before.
Oh, excellent. What was it? Do share.
A Moscow Muller?
Mule.
A Moscow Mule.
A Moscow Muller.
I couldn't remember.
That's a very different drink.
Very different thing. Yeah.
Actually, the recipe is a secret.
Unfortunately, because my friend was like, well, usually they serve it in like a copper,
They do. Yeah.
Cup. And I just got a little plastic white cup.
Makes you feel like Trotsky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was good.
Moscow Mule.
Ginger beer.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking I like it.
Yeah. Move into that world.
Yeah. So, but no, it was a lot of fun. It was great concert, great show if you're a Jason Mraz fan. And
as we know,
I am,
you are a Jason
and
Mraz
my friends
fan.
are, and we danced, and it was awesome.
That's
so
beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful experience.
Yes, it was good memories.
We're talking about ADHD today on the show.
Yes. We're not talking about music or
should come as a surprise to no one. We are talking about ADHD, and we're talking about what do you do when you don't feel supported in your diagnosis. And this is inspired by you good people. Yeah.
Yes. Our listeners.
Yeah.
It came through a couple different ways. Mm-hmm.
I love that. We're going to talk all about that. Before we get into it, head over to takecontroladhd.com. You can get to know us a little bit better. Listen to the show right there on the website, or subscribe for free to our mailing list, and you'll get an email every time a new episode is released. You can connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at takecontroladhd. And, if you've ever been touched by anything that we've done on this show in the last many years, we'd sure appreciate it if you would consider supporting us with a few dollars at patreon.com/theadhdpodcast. Your direct support via Patreon allows us to continue to grow the show, to invest in hosting and equipment, and to continue to develop resources that we use to invest back into the ADHD community. Plus, your support gets you access to the community Discord chat channels where you can interact with others living with ADHD and talk about a very wide range of topics. Maybe it's accommodations, maybe it's meds, maybe it's planning a new podcast on foods that float in milk. It is amazing.
Captain Crunch.
I am deeply gratified at that community every day I log in. In fact, I haven't logged in at all over the last 4 days, and I have missed so much. I've missed diagrams on how birds breathe.
Oh, geez.
That I caught this morning. I mean, this is amazing, and I'm just so grateful that these folks are there. So join the group, and see what's going on. See how this wonderful community can help support you and your ADHD. That's what we've got. Okay, Nikki.
Yes.
I just don't believe your diagnosis.
Oh, how dare you, Pete Wright? Actually, I should be saying that to you. Pete, I don't believe that you have ADHD.
Right. Well, if I had a white glove, I would slap your face with it.
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm. Well, as we said earlier, this came through a couple different ways. The first question that came through is, what do you do when you have a family member or members who don't believe your diagnosis? And then the second question came, what if kids don't have the support they need from their parents, or an adult that doesn't have support from their friends or spouse? Some challenges you have personal control over, but what about the ones that involve others' support?
Oh dear.
Have you experienced this?
Well, yeah. I think I've told this story on the show. When I was diagnosed as an adult, and told my own mother, she was highly dubious. And it comes from, I totally recognize her position too, that, I would feel terrible if suddenly 30 years later, I find out that I missed something that, in hindsight is potentially so obvious. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like that would feel terrible as a parent. And I totally get that. It took a lot of kind of normalizing to get to the other side of that.
It's interesting you bring that up, because when I was looking into the topic, and I base some of the information that I'm going to talk about today off of this article that I came across, which was from Rick Green. If you have not checked out Rick Green, he's fabulous.
I put the link in the show notes.
Yes. Totally ADD is his website. They have different documentaries about ADHD. In fact, I watched his documentary on PBS when I was trying to decide if I wanted to go into ADHD coaching. It just happened to be on. This is the universe speaking. It just happened to be on one night. I think it was called ADD and Loving It. And I was thinking, gosh, should I go this route? And I watched the documentary, and sure enough, I was like, that's it. I'm doing it.
The answer is yes.
Yes. And I had the privilege of meeting him at a CHAD conference, and I actually told him that story. So I was like, awesome. You inspired me. But anyway, in his blog, he has a article specifically. It says, I don't believe in ADHD. And going back to what you were saying about your mother, one of the things that he says in the article is that is what happens sometimes with parents, is that they feel that guilt, that they didn't catch it, that they didn't see it. And, I can see that as a parent, feeling like, not that I don't believe that you wouldn't have it. It's just that, oh my gosh, what a bad parent I am for not seeing it and not helping you sooner. Right. So there's a lot of guilt that gets in there. But anyway, so I want to go off a little bit off of this article because it was great. And then we can talk a little bit about, our perspectives too. He sets up this great story, in the article about how you finally get diagnosed. You have this better understanding of who you are. You are starting to implement some ADHD strategies, some systems. You're feeling really good, right? You're feeling like, I've got this. I'm going to be able to conquer this. And I think from my experience, and that's why I'm not surprised when I asked you, has this happened to you? I think it happens to most ADDers, and it happens to coaches. When I tell people what I do for a living,
people don't believe you're an ADHD coach.
They don't understand it. They don't understand it, especially when I say that I coach adults and college students.
Yes.
They get the college students, but they don't understand the adults.
Yeah.
And they're like,
because
what?
they see it as a kid's thing. We have, 5 decades of seeing ADHD as a thing that you grow out of.
Right.
That complete misnomer, obviously, for those of us living with it. But it is seen as a thing that you escape.
Yes.
You get through puberty and suddenly, you don't need to worry about that anymore.
Or it's all boys. It's always boys that have the hyperactivity.
Right.
Girls don't have it. What are you talking about? No. So definitely, I think that most people listening to this is going to relate. It's either from a friend, a family member, a coworker. They say they either don't believe in ADHD. I had a trainer who I worked with who thought it was a pharmaceutical scam. Well, he is no longer my trainer. Because I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to say the words that I was thinking in my head. There might be some people saying that there's nothing wrong with you, or this is what I got when I was telling somebody about what I did. Well, they're a grown adult. How can you just suddenly have ADHD?
Oh dear.
How can that happen? Yeah. So,
Well, and I try to approach that with a sense of grace, right? Like, yeah. I get it. If you are living under the misconception that ADHD is a kid's disease, that ADHD can be contracted,
right?
That it can develop. Like, you don't understand how that can make sense. I get that. And my hope is that it's just a matter of education.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it is important to understand why you may react the way that you do. So when somebody does say that to you, you kind of feel like, you've been slapped in the face a little bit, right? There's this like pit in your stomach, like, shoot, now I have to defend this. I have to defend my ADHD, or I have to somehow make them feel better about it, or somehow maybe say nothing. But then you start doubting yourself. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't have this. I mean, there's a lot of different things that can kind of go into your mind when you hear these kinds of comments. And the reality is not everyone does believe in ADHD. We can't change that. Not everybody is there are going to still be people who are going to think that you don't have ADHD. Even if they believe in ADHD, they may not think you have it. Mm-hmm. So can we convince them that ADHD is real? Probably not. I don't think it's, necessarily an argument you want to spend a whole lot of energy on. But what Rick Green says, which I think is really good, is we can arm ourselves and be prepared when it happens. And so what he says is in the article, he spent years passionately arguing and debating with people whether, what the facts were. And he actually found a better solution. And I thought this was really good. He says he agrees with them. Sort of.
Well, I need to hear more about that.
He sort of agrees with them. So instead of being defensive, what he says is no matter what they say, he replies, you know what? That's exactly what I thought, followed by, then I learned.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this approach.
That's a sales trick.
It is.
Have you ever heard of feel, felt, found?
I haven't.
This is a great sales trick.
Yeah.
Oh, I know how you feel.
Right.
I felt the same way.
I didn't believe it either. And then I learned this.
Yeah.
And then I experienced this. And then I found out that other people were experienced this. And then I saw the science behind it. I mean, you could go on. And so what I like about his approach is that it is hoping that we're educating people. It is hoping that maybe we're opening up that door a little bit without having to get into some huge heated debate that's just going to make you mad and get mad at the person too. But this is, I think that we still have to, okay, that's a great backup plan, but what if that still doesn't work, right? This is my own personal coaching opinion, and Pete, you can tell me what you think. I feel like at that point, your truth, how ADHD affects you. And I think my feeling is the best thing is to let go of what that person thinks and just understand it's their issue and not yours. People fear what they don't understand, especially the closer they are to you. Yeah. So, and I experienced that a little bit this weekend when I was open about my depression and anxiety. I could see my friends when I talked about it. They just
they're shocked.
They just looked at me like, are you okay?
Yeah.
What do you mean you're depressed? And I also got the question about medication. Well, why are you on medication? Does that make you feel worse? Does that make you feel numb? No, I feel like I have to have my medication or I'm going to go in a dark hole. Yeah. So, I mean, I really do think that people fear what they don't understand or they just have never experienced it. So, and I don't fault those people at all. I mean, these are like my best friends. I mean, I love them,
Right. Well, and I mean, especially these people who, like you said, if they're that close to you, that sort of a discussion is a surprise, right? It's the same surprise when it's somebody close. We're at that age now where the people that we've been closest to all our lives sometimes call us with surprises, like I'm getting a divorce, or I'm an alcoholic, or right. I mean, these are the things that we start to hit at right now. In this age. I look at my beard and I think, God, look at all that.
We're middle age.
Yeah, that's where I am. And how do you embrace that? Comes back to something you just said, right? Embracing your truth. And I feel like what comes with this gray is a certain lack of patience in the debate. There are people for whom, even people who have ADHD and feel very strongly that it is their job to be an acolyte of the case of ADHD, that ADHD does exist, that they need to fight for it. And I appreciate those people, and I am not one of them.
Right.
In order for me to make it through the day, I have a certain number of accommodations and practices and behaviors that I have had to develop over the years. It is not anyone else's job but my own to maintain those, and I don't have patience for it. And so I shut up. I just shut up, and that allows me to go on with my day and my life and feel good. And I don't need to engage with people who adore fighting on the internet.
Right.
In defense of ADHD and those who don't. I think it is harder when you talk about this case of your friends and your family, my mother, your friends, these people who have a vested interest in not believing that you're in trouble.
Yes, I agree. And, I had actually replied to the first question on a Facebook Live, and I took this question to one of my coaching groups and I have said, what do you guys do when somebody doesn't believe it or somebody close to you doesn't believe it? And they all had the same answer. They actually, it kind of ruined the relationship for them. Now, this was just a couple of, handful of people. What I think is, everybody's going to be different. Every situation is going to be different. But I definitely would say avoid talking to that person about your ADHD. You can savor the relationship, but I would definitely say don't talk about that. Don't make that be an issue, because especially if it's leading into fighting and negative feelings about the person, and you've got to protect yourself, and I think that's what you're doing. And what you're saying is I'm protecting myself by avoiding the conversation in the first place. I'm not going to engage in this. And, I think that we can continue trying to educate our parents and our loved ones and our spouses, especially a spouse. I think it's important that we keep the open communication.
But see, that's the complication, right? That is the complication about having this conversation with people that are so close to you that you have to have it.
Well, right. Because my first instinct is if it's a distant relative or somebody that's not really close, you could avoid it. But if it's somebody in your family, like if it's your husband or your wife or your partner or whatever, or boyfriend, girlfriend, you can't avoid it. You have to talk about it.
Right. Well, I really like that strategy that you pull out for the feel, felt, found, right?
Yeah.
The 3 Fs. I think that is something that really allows you to dig into the conversation in a little bit more of a gentle way.
Yeah.
And for the people that are most, I know how you feel. I know that watching me over the last 30 years, it seems like I kind of have my stuff together. And what I felt the same way. I felt like this is just what I have to do to live my life. What I found is there is a bucket full of behaviors that defines who I am and how that's different from you. And it's not something that you can experience because you don't have those behaviors, or if you do, please tell me and let's have a shared experience about it.
Right.
But if you've never experienced that, then we have some learning to do from each other, and that's where we have to start, right? And I think for me, that's how you get through. It's one of those very basic sales techniques that I learned years ago in my first sales job, and it has actually helped me far beyond any sort
just
of
selling
success
something.
in sales. Yeah, it's just
right.
a way to rationalize, to normalize the space between, two people who are having a difficult conversation. And I think that's really important. But I want to get back to your point. There is a place where you have to be able to stop and say, how important is my relationship with this person that they know my position on this? It may be that we only see each other every 5 years at barbecues and reunions. Right. It may be that this is not something they need to understand about me. It may be something I don't need to defend at this backyard barbecue. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to move on from that relationship and put that in a different place. Mm-hmm. But there are people who are deeply important to me and may feel strongly in their position, and they need to understand who I am.
Right. Absolutely. And that's definitely, I think, putting it in the right context. Something you said is normalizing it. And that I think is important, that people, when they're not feeling supported, look for your tribe. Look for the people who do get you. And when you need to talk about your ADHD, talk to the ones who do support you, who do understand it. And it may not be the ones that are closest to you. You may need to connect with other ADDers, whether it's in a coaching group or going to a CHAD meeting, finding an online community on Facebook or Attitude Magazine, listening to podcasts, joining our Patreon community where you can talk about cereal, along with medication. I mean, there's a lot, nothing is more it's always interesting, right?
Yes. Truth.
And read and educate yourself about ADHD and, learn about how it affects you. Accept that this is, a partner in your life. I love how you said that at the beginning of the show. And understand you don't have to defend it. You don't just understand it so that you feel good in your own skin. And this is your journey. It's no one else's. And so I think that, my message, that I stand on, that I promise I won't change, is that you're not alone. There are people who really do support you and get this and want to help you and be a part of that journey. And when you're kind of at your low and ADHD sucks and this is just an awful thing, those are the people you want to go to and, help them with the inspiration and motivation to get out of it or to feel better.
And the hardest part I find is it's always a bit of an awakening when I recognize that there is this person with whom I felt very close, but suddenly realize we have a thing that divides us. And I know so many of us have felt this in our current sort of political era, right?
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
Sort of Anthropocene era in which we exist. And, ADHD is one of those pivotal topics. Mm-hmm. And it is always so dark when I recognize that here's a person that refuses to have a rational conversation with me about this topic. And now there is something we can't talk about together. Mm-hmm. And that's really hard for me to recognize that. And it always does. It takes an enormous amount of work to move to the other side of it. And sometimes it damages the relationship beyond repair.
Well, and I think that, when you were talking about the political, I think that it's so, I understand the comparison, but it is different because the ADHD is so personal. It is a part of you. It is a part of the way your brain is wired. It's not your fault that you have ADHD. And then I think that with, when you look at people that disagree with politics, it's not so I guess for some people it can be personal.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
They get really
I'd be hesitant
heated
to make that same claim.
Yeah. Somehow I guess I'm still able, for my own depression and anxiety, I can separate my political beliefs. But if somebody doesn't understand that piece of me, that it's just more personal. And I think, like you said, it's harder to get over to the other side. And it depends if it's that person you see every 5 years versus the person you live with.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is hard. I think just enable yourself with great resources. There are fantastic resources. As Nikki says, find your tribe, find the people that are important to you. Join the chat over at join our Discord channel and find your tribe there. They're definitely there.
They are.
And there you go. So again, I put the link to in the show notes for I Don't Believe in ADHD, the fantastic post by Rick Green over at Totally ADD. Not used to dropping the H.
Right?
That is foreign to me. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And check it out because it's worth it. It's worth it to arm yourself with these kinds of things. And remember, feel, felt, found. Feel, felt, found. Feel, felt, found.
Feel.
That's it.
Feel what? Feel,
felt, found. I get how you feel. I felt that way too.
And this is what I found.
Yeah.
Nice.
Think about that.
You learn something new every day.
Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to the show. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week right here on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.